Hey, my name is Beau Taillefer, and in this video, I want to talk about helping students learn to audiate better or helping yourself learn to audiate better by playing little discrimination games, by helping yourself make discriminations. So if you don't know what audiation is, go back to the first video on my channel and check that out. And this is also going to fill in some of the gaps on another video on my channel called Why People Struggle to Learn Music Theory. So this is more of the practical application. So basically everything I'm going to say right now is super influenced by Edwin E. Gordon, the music education researcher, who you should check out if you're not familiar with him, and Siegfried Engelmann, the creator of direct instruction. And so I've kind of fused the thinking of these two geniuses together and found ways of practically applying what they're talking about to just giving someone a guitar lesson, giving someone a piano lesson, or trying to make my own audiation stronger in the case of being a jazz and classical guitarist. And so basically, let's start from scratch here. Let's say, for example, you have a student who's starting to learn jazz music, or you're starting to learn jazz music, and something you see a lot in jazz is a major seventh chord off the tonic. So if we're in the key of C, you hear this kind of chord a lot. But what we want to make sure we do when we're teaching students, we don't want to just teach them the name of the chord, C major 7. I mean, that's good to know. We don't just want to teach them, major 7th off the tonic. We're now getting into kind of labels and music theory, all good things to know. But we want to make sure that those sounds are actually in the person's ear as a piece of musical vocabulary. We want to make sure they can recognize those sounds when they come at them in a piece. We want to make sure we're planting seeds so that they can compose and improvise and compose with those sounds more like someone would speak their native tongue, where it's very natural. They don't need to be using a lot of conceptual rules of grammar. They just naturally know how the grammar works. They don't even understand at that level how they know. They just know what sounds right. And we want to make sure when we're learning music, we're doing two things. We're learning how to audiate things very effectively, and we're also learning the theory and the labels and all that kind of stuff. Everything is fantastic, but we need to make sure the beginning, kind of if we have a triangle or a pyramid, like up to here, if the top of the pyramid's my head, up to here is, maybe just the theory and the label. Everything else is by ear. So we can feel things by ear. We can tell what it is. And the first step that you need to do to make sure that this begins on the right foot is establish, in this case, we're talking about tonal content. We need to establish the tonal context. If we do not establish tonal context and we start to try to learn to do ear training, we're doing ear training out of context, and essentially the brain is not going to file this stuff in the right folders in our minds. It's not going to categorize it properly. And an example of this is like, you can have a major 7th chord in many different places. In fact, you can actually have it in 12 different places. It could be off the root of the key you're in. It could be off the flat 2, the flat 3, the 3, the 4, the flat 5, the 5. It can be any one of these functions. And so when we're training harmonic information and tonal information, we need to be thinking about how does the information we're learning relate to the tonal center. So let's use a really simple example so it's not complicated for people theoretically. Let's establish the key of C major. So we can do it with this little scale pattern, or we can do it with a harmonic pattern. Hopefully you're hearing that C note. Boom. You can try singing this resting tone with me. Try singing the C note with me. Boom. If you, after what I just did, cannot sing that, you're most likely not ready to learn to audiate the thing that's coming next. You need to spend more time listening to music and learning how to hear resting tones. So we have the key of C. Now let's say I want to teach someone to hear the tonic chord as a major 7th, or in the key of C, we could just call it a C major 7, that's fine, but we know it's the 1 chord. We have this. It's a very common sound in jazz. Now, again, the problem is a lot of people will learn the theoretical name for this, but not be able to identify it by ear. And that doesn't make for a very musical musician when you don't have those basic skills in place. And so one way we can really supercharge this process is by helping people make discriminations. That was Edwin Gordon's way of talking about it. Or if we think about how Siegfried Engelmann talked about it, we want them to inductively learn this concept. And we got to be careful with the word concept. When Engelmann used the word concept, Engelmann's talking about if we go music related, Engelmann's talking about the actual raw audiation of that sound. You don't even know you don't even need to know what it's called. You don't need to know why it works. You don't need to know that it's a triad with a major seventh on it and all that kind of music theory stuff. That comes later. That needs to go on top of the kind of pyramid. But right now we're just worried about the raw sound. Now, if we just kept playing the sound over and over again, someone would get familiar with it, but it's not enough. We need them to be able to discriminate between things that are similar to it and, in the beginning, very different from it, but later on, very, very similar to it. And so, for example, let's back up for a sec. We establish context. We play an example of what we want someone to learn. And we say, that's whatever you want to call it. That's C major 7. That's a tonic chord. That's a tonic chord with a major 7. Now we immediately juxtapose that with something different. Hopefully something very different. Not just one of the notes, not just something like this. Not just one thing changing. We want to juxtapose it with something that's radically easy. If you have a more advanced student, you start to play around with just changing one tone or getting very subtle with the discriminations. But at the beginning, you want to make it easy on people. So we have this. Here's the C major 7. Here's not C major 7. Here's C major 7. Here's not C major 7. I'm even making the comparison stay. So I'm not showing you 9 different chords that it's not. I'm just starting with this. This is C major 7. Here's not C major 7. We could add a couple more. C major 7. Not C major 7. More subtle distinction. What is this? Is that C major 7? What about this? What about this? What about this? So hopefully you could rapidly answer those questions. If you can't, you need some further guidance. You need someone maybe to take it a little easier on you. You can make the discriminations very obvious. So you could go, this is C major 7. This is not C major 7. C major 7, not C major 7. That's how you do this with kids. If you're starting this with kids, you need to give them a sense of competence, like they're actually moving forward on the task you're asking them to do. Later on, some of the examples, changing one note. And so once someone can tell the difference between the two, you might just do that for a minute or two. It's not a long, drawn-out process. And if you're doing this yourself, you should make recordings. And I'll have another video talking about the power of making recordings and why you should do that. But you start something like that, 5 or 10 rapid comparisons. And on the recording, you would actually say to yourself, this is C major 7. This is not C major 7. This is C major 7. This is not C major 7. What is this? Is that yes or no? Is this yes or no? And you make a rapid quiz, either for your student or for yourself, and that gives you a good gauge of how well you're dealing with that. Then what you can do is you do something that Engelmann called an expansion activity. So now you go on and use that in a piece of music right away. Play a piece of music that has a C major 7. And, just fart around with that a bit and play it. You could sing it, you could dance to it. You got to put it in a bigger musical context now. And then what you do in the next lesson, so this could be the next day if you have the privilege of doing this yourself. Most music teachers only teach a student once a week or so. In the next lesson, you repeat the exact same process. You pretend they didn't even learn it. You pretend it's complete ground zero. You do that 3 times. Usually 2 or 3 times. If they are knocking it out of the park and it's obnoxiously easy for them, then 2 times is good. But you keep giving them the chance, because what's going to happen is in the beginning, the discrimination is very easy to make after you do this little game and guide their ears, but then they come back the next day or the next week, and it's kind of like they're starting from scratch. They don't really have the sound memorized. They can do it after a little bit of guidance, and you might do that 3 or 4 times over the course of a month. If you're teaching yourself, you could just do this 3 or 4 days in a row, and it's super, super fast. And then what you do is you add a second harmonic function. So let's say I wanted to add the 4 chord. So I could go. could say that's C major 7. This is F major 7. This is C major 7. This is C major 7. This is F major 7. Now at this point, as you start to build a harmonic vocabulary, you don't need to compare these to random chords anymore. You compare them to each other. So in the beginning, I'm using the exact same voicings. So if I was to do stuff like this is C major 7, this is C major 7, this is F major 7, this is F major 7. That's harder to do. You have to treat each one of those like it's a separate piece of content. And this is, to be honest, why people struggle so much with harmonic audiation, because they're not realistic in the beginning. You can only add a couple things at a time. You can't add every voicing of C major 7 and assume someone's going to audiate it and then compose with it. It's just completely unrealistic. You start with one voicing and you make the discrimination very easy to make. You basically spoon feed the person and then add another chord. By the way, you don't have to go through every inversion, every voicing of something before you add a new piece of harmonic content. I think it's better to just add more harmonic content, go back, and then fill in different voicings and stuff like that if you want to get into that. But start adding other functions. And now I give you a quiz. That's C major 7. That's F. C major 7. F major 7. What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? The quiz should be rapid like that. If someone cannot rapidly answer the question, it means they haven't learned it, and it's fine. They just need more practice with it. They need an easier discrimination to make, but it's definitely not time to add more. Because if you think, when we're listening to music, if you're at a jam session and someone just goes bang, plays 2 chords, you don't have time for... even 10 seconds is obnoxiously long. It's like an eternity. You can't think about what you just heard. If you're taking a solo on a song and someone goes like this, you need to know what that was right away. You don't have time to react with some kind of theoretical or conceptual model. You need to, at a gut, rapid, intuitive level, immediately know what just happened and know how to respond to it. And that's really all you do. You just keep adding more functions. In the beginning, it doesn't even really matter the order you add them in. I would start with the tonic chord because like 1, 4, and 5 are a really good place to start from. But you can put a tritone sub right away. It's easy to hear. This is D flat 7 in the key of C. It sounds complicated theoretically. Tritone sub of the 5 chord, D flat 7 in the key of C major. It's not hard to hear though. It's not hard to audiate. Now in the beginning, this seems like it's not that powerful. You know, you do this for a few weeks. You do this for a month or two. When you have like, I don't know, have an exact number, but you'll hit some critical mass where you have a ton of harmonic functions. All of a sudden someone's just playing something. Yeah, I know what that is. 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 You just turn into a monster, right? But most people don't have the actual patience to guide their students through this or to guide yourself through this. This works really well if you make recordings and just listen to them a couple times a day where, at the start of the recording, you describe what you're doing. This is C major 7. This is D flat 7. This is C major 7. This is F 7. F major 7. What is this? What is this? What is this? And just drill yourself for like a minute. Rapid questions. Listen, make a couple of recordings like that. Listen to them a few times over the course of the day for like a minute or two, and your ears will just open right up. Your ears will expand. And then what you'll find is when you learn music theory concepts, as I mentioned in that other video on why so many musicians struggle with music theory, you'll find that the music theory is pinned onto these sounds that you can hear in your bones. And that's really the first stage of learning how to improvise and compose and play well, is just the raw identification. There's other steps you have to go through. You have to learn how to string these into chord progressions. You have to learn how to, play them on your instrument. You have to learn how to use them tastefully and stylistically. Sometimes you can audiate something in this kind of basic form, but you can't audiate how it would be used in a certain context of like a bebop tune or whatever. And so that requires, different kinds of practice to do that. But you can't really excel at any of that if you can't just at a base level tell what the chord is by listening to it. And so, I used an example with chords, but you could use it with tonal patterns. You could use it with rhythm patterns. You can do all kinds of things. And when you're teaching with students, you can be doing this all the time. Someone plays a bar of something and you play them a version with one note changed. And you said, well, which one was what? Was that the one we're supposed to be playing or that the one? And if you do this with students over the course of years, just for a minute or two here and there, students start to develop very powerful discrimination skills in the case of Gordon's language, or the way Engelman would phrase it is they are inductively learning these things. Inductive learning is completely different than conceptual learning. Conceptual learning, you're memorizing facts, you're memorizing definitions, nothing wrong with that. But inductive learning, you are memorizing the information at a raw level where the discrimination matters. And where the discrimination matters in music is at the sound audiation level. You can't show up to a jam session knowing the names of these chords and hope it's going to go well. It's not enough. You can't just know theoretically that an F major 7 chord, has an E, an F, an A, and a C in a certain inversion. That's not going to help. You have to have this like in your bones at this like audiated cognitive level. So I'll leave it there. I'll have many more videos on this channel about this. Hopefully one day I'll record videos where I actually just walk you through this kind of stuff so you can learn it on your own. But I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, get a hold of me, leave a comment in this video. I love talking about this kind of stuff. My name is Beau. I offer online piano and guitar lessons, and I offer coaching for teachers who are trying to learn to teach more effectively using Gordon's methods and using methods from direct instruction and all that kind of stuff. Shoot me an email if you're interested. Have a wonderful day.